35% of the problem startups encounter in their portfolio are founder breakups. Everybody says, okay, there's BPO, there's financial analysis, there's medical analysis, but it can be replaced. There's a threat. It's a big threat. As an experienced founder, it feels like you've got a superpower because you're a product builder. So a lot of the lessons that you learned before, those standards, the principles that you've learned in guiding the technology, the AI, it's crazy easy. It's almost like cheating, but it only feels that way when you've been in it for years.
Welcome to Brave. Learn from Southeast Asia's best tech leaders. Build the future, learn from our past, and stay human in between. No BS on success. I'm Jeremy Au, venture capitalist, serial founder, Harvard MBA, science fiction nerd, and dad of 2 daughters. Every week, we debate startup news, interview changemakers, answer listener questions, and share personal insights. Join our movement of over 40,000 members and get transcripts, resources, and community at www.bravesea.com. Stay well and stay brave. Hey, I'm so excited to have you back on the show again, Jay. You were last on the episode number 515, talking about your experience being a serial founder, as well as being somebody who's building the ecosystem. And I'm glad to have you back because you are back to being a founder again at the age of 58.
That's right.
With your birthday last week. So maybe we'll sing the happy birthday song sometime. For those who don't know you, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jay Fajardo. I'm the founder and CEO of BetterClinic. That's my new startup. And I've been in the ecosystem for quite a while, since it started, actually. And I've been a serial founder for a couple of decades now.
Please check out episode 515 to talk about those things. But you've been a serial founder, and then now you're building the ecosystem where there's capital and programs. So what, you got bored? You want to become a founder again?
Not really. A lot of the reasons that I build companies are actually based on very significant events in the ecosystem. And I remember when I first exited out of a company called Airborne Access, and I got back into software development. It was because of the Web 2.0 era. And I felt I was missing out on building stuff in Web 2.0. And that's also the same time the iPhone was announced, 2008. So it's a paradigm shift, obviously. Right. That's when a lot of the action happens. That's when a lot of the excitement happens and you get a lot of energy. Things are changing. New tech is emerging. And I feel that it's exactly what's happening now, the past couple of years. So it's AI that's driving a lot of the disruption today. It's giving a new context for builders and founders to build in. It's easier now to build for a lot of experienced founders. There's so much opportunity to change the way of doing things in different verticals. It's super exciting. That's why I decided to build again. That's where you get the energy. It's founder mode back. It's like, I can't miss this. It's so significant. It's probably more significant than the last couple of super cycles, the tech super cycles. You've got the PC revolution, which I was also part of when I was super young. Then there was the internet. Then you had the Web 2.0 and the mobile economy, mobile devices. Now you've got AI.
Fantastic. I think you're totally right, because the last time we did this episode, it was at Geeks on the Beach. And I remember obviously navigating my way to the beach, etc. And of course, this trip back to Manila, this time I was on like Gemini, using my AI to help me figure out some of the routes and just saying immigration stuff, etc. And is this a huge difference between those just 2 years where you didn't have AI in your pocket?
And it feels normal now, right?
Now it's normal.
It's like a couple of years or a year to using AI. Suddenly you can't live without it.
Exactly. It's crazy. Big shift. So what does it mean from your perspective is, it almost seems like you have a philosophy, right? It sounds like if the technology curve is mature, you can be an ecosystem builder. But if the hockey shape is coming, you want to be a builder.
So you have to be part of it, because that's when you are participant in world-changing stuff, right? So you don't want to stay on the sidelines. You're right. When you put it that way, when the action is really heating up, you participate, you do stuff, you build stuff, and then later it stabilizes. Then you start doing ecosystem work, bringing more people in.
I'm curious, how you're approaching this startup differently. Are you, I guess, I don't know, using cloud coding, or what does it mean to be doing it differently for this technology wave?
Obviously, the tool set is very enabling for building. As an experienced founder, it feels like you've got a superpower because you're a product builder. So a lot of the lessons that you learned before, it's stock knowledge now. Just keep on using those standards, the principles that you've learned in guiding the technology, the AI, for design, for creating BRDs, creating PRDs, and then eventually code and frameworks. So it's super easy. It's crazy easy. It's almost like cheating. But it only feels that way when you've been in it for
Yeah.
years. And for other people, I'm pretty sure they're still trying to get their handle on how to do things. What's the first step in building an AI first startup?
You've built companies for each technology wave so far, and now you're deciding to build with the age of AI and so forth, but you're also choosing to build it for healthcare as well. So why this intersection versus, I don't know, other verticals or...
Well, I did a tech startup 2015,
Yeah.
2016, which became quite popular during COVID. So that was my exposure to digital health. And I learned a lot about the pain points of the doctors, how to go to market, for example, how to encourage them to use technology, adopt technology into their practice. But a lot of the problems that existed then still remain. They haven't been solved. The thing about health, digital health and health 2.0, many solutions were just amplifying the problems. For example, people talk about appointment systems. The root problem is not being able to efficiently set appointments. It's if the doctor shows up or not. Right? So when that happens, all you're doing is 10xing problem, right? So, but AI seems to be the key now to actually solve real things. And things are happening so fast that people are now talking about diagnosis it themselves. People are taking it seriously enough, try to put guardrails and to put regulatory frameworks to try to slow it down first before it takes over. So we're in that stage now. And AI is, and a lot of people would probably agree, AI is actually, seems to be the technology that will help or solve a lot of health issues, not just in bio or practice or diagnosis, but in workflow as well, which is where I am.
It's a big difference, right? For myself, obviously, I care about my longevity / personal health. And I used to listen to a lot of like Huberman Labs, right, to talk about, and it was an hour, 2 hour episodes. And I think it's quite interesting. But what's interesting, I realize now is that when I got my blood work recently, about 2 months ago, I just put it all into Gemini and ChatGPT to compare. And then at the end of that whole process, after asking them to explain it, talk about differences, I asked them to give me a list of supplements to buy to help those various biomarkers. And then I went to buy them. And then I got to explain a few more things. And I did all that maybe in like a week after the results. And my doctor appointment to discuss those results were like a few weeks after that, right? So it was like an insane piece where I turned up for the doctor appointment, kind of like feeling like I was more briefed on my own personal condition than what the doctor could give me in a 15-minute consultation a month after the report, right? Which is an interesting inversion.
It is, because remember when that experience that you just narrated was actually a specific startup. So people had startups that would take your profile, take your blood work, and then give you a regimen of supplements. But you did it yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are the things that are happening with AI, democratizing access to information. The second thing, I had a discussion, I'm not sure if Jojo Malolos, the CEO of, so we were having a discussion last week about how doctors would actually miss a lot of signals, right? Because they're only human. So again, they may be having a bad day. Probably they switch to decaffeinated coffee that day, and then they missed out on a lot of information. AI actually won't. So if you use it as a second opinion, and then it tells you, and then you tell your doctor, this is what the AI told me, this is suggestion, and he goes like, wow, he's right. Never thought of that. Or I probably should have, but I didn't. So
it's just kind of crazy where all of that is really happening, and some people are uploading their personal health data, including myself, to AI as well. So what do you think is the vision of your approach to it? Is it like appointments and scheduling? Like, how does that new world look like?
Well, what I'm trying to tackle now is on the workflow side, doctors. This is a phenomenon called pajama time. It's doctors having to catch up on admin work at home in their pajamas because it's just too much. And
of course, it's crazy. It's so overbooked.
And it's not supposed to be their work. They shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be spending that much time. It's about 40% of their time.
What? 40%?
Yeah, percent. Which,
sorry to say this, but isn't that what the clinic manager or the nurse practitioner, isn't that supposed to help with that?
They should. In fact, they're already part of the value chain in doing this, but it leads to burnout. And some doctors have started to think about leaving the practice because of the stress. So obviously, AI is capable enough to take in the consultation and then to generate the reports itself. With some oversight, right? Let the doctors review it and then edit it and whatnot. But it takes up a whole lot of work from what they used to do.
And how will you go about doing it? Is it like the US, they have like the AI voice scribes?
Yeah, it's a scribe. It's an ambient scribe. And when you consult with your doctor, fires it up. And then it just listens in the background. And then that's it. And then at the end of the consultation, the doctor just checks out the generated reports. It's all the way from just a basic summary to insurance claim summary with ICD-10 codes and
Oh, that's such a pain. Insurance is so hard.
and prescription. If we're talking like I'm gonna prescribe to you take it 3 times a day for 5 days, of course the AI will know what I'm talking about, and it just transforms it into a prescription. And the bane of doctors, the medical certificate, which they really hate doing because it's very little impact. It's purely administrative. So it's automatic. It generates a medical certificate.
Oh, awesome. There are some companies that do that, right? And looking at, for example, Dr. Anywhere and White Coat. Those like telemedicine folks, they've created that workflow maybe for the group. Are you doing this at a practice level, or how is that approaching
I'm doing it at the practice level, and I'm consciously or purposely making it accessible as a mobile app for the doctor. So it's portable. It doesn't come with a system. You don't have to invest in a system or commit to a system. You have it as a personal tool. And that democratizes the access to that outcome.
Now, that's an interesting go-to-market approach, because historically, I'm just talking out loud, somebody would say, well, if this is enterprise healthcare, we need to target hospital systems. I'm just saying we got to have a B2B sales cycle and sales reps. It's going to be desktop-based. I'm just talking out loud here, right? So you're going a little bit more like Dropbox style, like prosumer, bottom-up.
That's always been my style, even with Medify, the telehealth app. It wasn't bulky. It was just really for the doctors to enable themselves to conduct their practice online. And a lot of doctors still aren't used to that, especially the old school doctors say, but we've got a system in the clinic, in the hospital. But this works with all of those systems. But this is in your phone. You just fire it up, just cut and paste. Copy it, base it into your system, and you've got it up and running.
Interesting. Tell me more about that approach. It's in my head, like one of the rules of Southeast Asia, for example, has been like product marketing really sucks. Like, because a lot of people are like, oh, you don't need enterprise sales. You just need to do product-led marketing. And I've seen a lot of companies.
It's actually a hybrid. The approach is hybrid. And I learned this to Medify. I'm not counting out enterprise sales.
Of course.
I remember during the pandemic, even doctor cohorts, ones that had specific specialties, were reaching out, and I could actually touch base with them, thousands of them at a single time. So it's sort of like a hybrid approach, reaching the doctors and marketing, but they buy it individually. Sometimes it's pushed by some of the partners, the different ecosystem partners or actors within their practice that pushes it to them.
That's interesting. So your approach is, it's not A is good or B is good, but more like you're doing a hybrid of both. I guess maybe to some extent also it's more, I'm going to say Filipino maybe. I don't know. Is it because of like doctors are more like tech savvy and need a doc? Or because I imagine in America, like the doctor wouldn't dare to, sorry I say this, install an app for themselves, right?
No, but you're right. Different markets have different personalities with regards to the practice. The Philippines has a unique dynamic for doctors, like associations and all that. It's different in Malaysia as well. We learned that also in the telehealth days. But whatever you encounter in the local market, that's what you have to work with. Sometimes it's not even a challenge. You have to look for where the opportunities are to penetrate the market rather than focus on the challenge or dwell on it. Just if people want your service, then it's easy enough to sell.
Tell me about some of those differences between geographies that you discovered for telehealth.
Malaysia, for example, I found out that after your consultation, the pharmacy is right outside the doctor's office.
The Singapore as well. They make money on the pharmacy as well.
That's rare here.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
I guess I've never been to the doctor in the Philippines.
It's very rare. It's unless you're in a large clinic or a large hospital, then you've got a pharmacy outside. But this one is really, it's part of their value chain for the doctor. So if you're working with external brands or other brands, sometimes you get some pushback on the pharmacy level because pushing a certain brand already. It's different. There's a lot of different driving forces that guide the practice.
For me, the question I have is, you're 58, happy birthday again.
Thank you.
And being a founder again, I'm sure, like, I'm just imagining you at a startup founder event and everyone's a young gun in their 20s and they come up to you thinking that you're a VC or something like that, right? You look like a distinguished statesman. How do you have the energy? How do you feel about that?
I don't mind. Even the past years, I've been busy working with startups anyway.
Of course.
So I'm used to it already. Of course, there are new generations of founders, younger ones. But I don't know, it's just par for the course, I guess. You're right. They look to you for advice and whatever. At the same time, I guess there's an example that this won't stop for you guys if you're a real founder or entrepreneur.
Amazing.
This is the only thing you're going to be doing for the rest of your life.
It's a bad disease. And what's interesting is that you're approaching this, in our last episode, you talked about some of the lessons you've learned along the way, but I'm just kind of curious, like how you're approaching this startup founder mode? Is it differently or the same? Any principles similar versus different from?
No, obviously, all the lessons learned, you don't have to make the same mistakes, right? So it's easy in that way. And you're able to leapfrog certain things. You don't have to relearn things. The thing that has changed is the concept of the solo founder, because the solo founder movement is becoming quite popular. Only because the tools and the infrastructure is making that possible now.
A solo founder?
I'm a solo founder.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm actually in the middle of it. Should I get another co-founder or should I stay solo? Because sometimes you don't have to. You move faster, right? But then, you know what they say, if you want to move fast, you go alone. If you want to move far, you go together, right? So I'm still thinking about that. But right now, it's working for me. But that's probably the only thing that's really changed. It's made it very easy. And the technology. If Web 2.0 made it easy for founders like me, I was already an experienced founder by the time Web 2.0 happened. Cloud computing made it super cheap. The new software development frameworks were built for rapid development. It's just 10x now for all that. So, but there's a lot of exciting technologies that are still unknown that you can probably tap in.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the solo founder piece, because you and I, we hung out with all the VCs. We also hung out with all the founders as founders. But, you know, a lot of VCs will say something like, hey, we will only underwrite a co-founding team of co-founders. Like a solo founder is too much risk. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, what do you think about that argument?
I think that's changing. I've heard some conversations, even with VCs. Some VCs prefer solo founders. And there have been studies. Somebody did a study that about 50% of the successful startups were coming from solo founders. And there's this thing I saw when VC was discussing a solo founder phenomenon. And he said, when he looks back, about 35% of the problems that they encounter in their portfolio are founder breakups.
Big problem for sure.
It's a problem, but it's a common one. So it happens more often than not.
Of course.
That's his take on it. So if you actually had solo founders, that doesn't exist, right? That doesn't exist. But I think there's a movement that's coming or that's happening, and it's a solo founder movement. And some VCs are becoming warm to it.
I think it makes a lot of sense. People, co-founders, because one is you may not have all the skill sets. Two, you may not have all the industry expertise.
That's right.
And three is you may not have all of the skill sets or time or man hours needed to get the thing going. But I think if you are somebody with more experience, in your 40s or 50s, you have savings capital, you know the industry well, I think you're much more thoughtful about the talent and network you need to activate to get that talent, right? I think it's less risky to be a solo founder.
If you've got that experience. And the funny thing is, I've got both sides. I've got the business experience and the engineering experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're right. It's sort of like cheating as well, because I don't have that baggage. I can imagine a non-engineer to want to later find a technical co-founder or even a marketing co-founder, go-to-market co-founder.
I think definitely you're one of the few hybrids out there who have both experience and comfortable and demonstrated outcomes and results from doing both, right? Because I think obviously there are many technical leaders who aspire to have the business side, but they don't have enough exposure, or frankly, it's not their strength. Vice versa, I think there are many business founders who are good at business and want to learn how to code, but never get there as well. So for somebody like you who can do both, and you have AI to help you code, so you don't have to like do it the old way, then versus I think some business founders now, they're trying to vibe code, but they still don't have that engineering mindset to achieve it.
I'm using some engineers too. So I'm sorry, I'm an engineer. My advantage is that I know what they're building. I know what's under the hood. What's important with coding. But still, every now and then I'm thinking about, should I get a CTO so that my brain space is freed up from that.
But I think it's a different thing from hiring a CTO versus having to bring in a co-founder. It's just a totally different frame.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, because do you face age discrimination, or do people feel like too old for startups or something?
Not really. I don't know who I have to convince.
Maybe you convince your wife.
I'm young enough, I'm not that old. I'm just putting out output. We're shipping. I know that a lot of VCs or investors don't mind. Some even think that's an advantage versus somebody that's just too young, and the risk reward is leaning towards age. So I don't think there's any sense.
How was the conversation with your wife? Like, she's seen you be a founder other times.
For her, this is normal for her.
She says like, he's off to another company,
another startup founder. I'm trying to convince her. She used to be a founder.
Oh.
So she had this startup called Good Meal Hunting, which was sort of like a marketplace for home kitchens pre-pandemic. In fact, she was so early that she was in cohort 1 of Magic. Remember Magic?
Oh, Magic and the accelerator. Grace Sai was the managing director. Yeah,
she was one of the
wow.
stars.
Grace Sai was somebody who set up the Impact Hub Singapore, the first co-working space in Singapore, and I was like a founding member because I was sick of working out Starbucks and pretending it wasn't my office for my clients back then. So I was first few customers, and I think she's obviously building Unravel Carbon, and she's been on the Brave podcast as well. So that's crazy. And Magic Accelerator, I haven't heard that name for a while. All right.
So that's how far we go, man.
Now I sound like a veteran as well. It was like, oh, the good old days, the first ever co-working space. When you think about this age, what do you think is going to happen more? Because obviously AI is going to get better and better. Like, what are exciting opportunities you think that you have for your company in terms of the vision of how big it can get?
You know what? There's so much ideas. Remember OpenAI, Claude, they're starting to come out with their health angles, right?
Of course.
And it's really aggregating biometrics. So people are starting to build out diagnosis-focused solutions, which is super exciting. There's going to be some convergence of use cases. You're going to be going to the doctor already with a pre-analyzed or pre-diagnosis for the doctor to check out. And it's based on the blood work that you just took. Then you've got on the workflow side, pretty soon you're going to have personal medical advisors.
Of course.
It's just coming.
Is this coming?
If nobody does it, it's just the user that's going to continue to use foundation models to try to get a pre-diagnosis. It's going to stop them. So that's the future. And then from the bio side, it's spatial AI that's going to come into play, obviously. That becomes another set of sensors for medical.
And how do you think that's going to impact like medical practices and the doctors and productivity?
Good question. I don't know. We're all sort of like trying to catch up. It's all hyper speed. You look at technology and we're moving in regular pace. We're just trying to catch this and that. But I'm sure it's going to be super exciting. It's going to be really paradigm shifting, sure. Even on the drug side, the R&D on developing medicines, pretty soon it's going to go to even surgery, AI-assisted surgery and all. It's coming. It's heading there. It's heading there for sure. Doctors, just like any other profession, would have to leverage their know-how, their brain. They're the brains at the end of the day, right? So just like lawyers, just like other professions.
What's the heaven or end state you think for doctors? One part of it, I guess, is like admin goes from 40% to 0%. That'd be a good positive end state.
For workflow, trying to bring it back to maybe 10%, maybe.
Okay.
Bring it down to 10%. That's because it's possible.
Yeah.
I think it's possible. Just make sure that they're reviewing the output.
Make sure that the paracetamol, etc., is all verified.
So I think that's the immediate term.
But what do you think that could be further out, you think?
Obviously, it's unattended reports, right? When you're talking about further out and we're talking about AI, we're literally living in science fiction.
Exactly.
That it's then anything. The ambition is sky's the limit for sure. Even avatar assistant starts with a non-human medical assistant. Then pretty soon you're going to have a colleague that's AI. So, like Baymax. Baymax is the goal.
Baymax, the Pixar cartoon, right?
He was designed to be a medical
robot.
So that's pretty much the hologram.
Jeremy doesn't need to be a certified workplace first responder. I'll say, hey, the robot can do the CPR.
I'm super optimistic what can happen. We've seen so much happen in the last 12 months.
And do you think the Philippines is like well positioned? There's a lot of fear, for example, we talked about it in a bit, like, BPO could be vulnerable to AI and things like that. Do you think it's straightforward or what?
Yes, it's straightforward only because there's a lot of work being focused on voice support. And that's the easiest thing to replace. Now, everybody says, okay, there's BPO, there's business process, there's financial analysis, there's medical analysis, but you can tell it can be replaced already. Yeah. So there's a threat. It's a big threat. I'm not sure what the solution is, but it's for sure it's coming. And it's going to impact not just on that vertical or that industry, because that industry is fueling an ecosystem around it. Real estate, retail. So that's actually a thing we have to watch out for.
Definitely. Well, on that note, I'd love to summarize the 3 big takeaways. First, thanks so much for sharing about your founder journey and your vision about building productivity and workflow approach for the healthcare clinical practices workflows. I thought it's interesting to hear a little bit about some of your veteran approaches about targeting prosumer doctors, but also a hybrid of like product marketing and as well as enterprise sales, and some of your key learnings that you have there, and the opportunity to hopefully bring down administrative time from 40% to down to 10% time, right? Secondly, thanks for sharing about your comfort about being 58 and building a company again. Always founder mode again, and I love that energy. But I thought it was actually a really good Framing, which is not about the energy level, but the fact that you see that this is a technology wave that you can't miss out on. And if it's starting to hockey shape up, then you should be a builder rather than an ecosystem builder. And so I thought that's actually a really good insight, actually, that even I have to probably process a bit more afterwards. But,
You're going to be a founder soon.
Thanks so much for sharing a little bit more about some of the approaches to AI and how that changes the dynamics around building a company. I thought it was just nice to hear you talk about the permutations between a co-founder versus solo founder mode, how some of the assumptions have changed, as well as how you're using AI to both hire differently, build differently, and even manage your product differently, right? So thanks so much for sharing.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you for listening to Brave. If you enjoyed this episode, please share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. We would also appreciate you leaving a rating or review. Head over to www.bravesea.com for member content, resources, and community. Stay well and stay brave.